Welcome to Heartglow CEO, where high achievers evolve into purpose-driven powerhouses. I'm Casey Rossi, your integrative leadership coach. Join us to break free from people-pleasing and burnout, exploring mindset, embodiment, and soul alignment. Discover expert insights, success stories, and actionable tips for holistic wealth on your terms. This is where transformation meets the modern female leader. Let's go. Hello, beautiful. You are in for a very special treat. My guest today is Karen Curry Parker. She is the author of multiple books on personal transformation, spirituality, and human design, and has been in the field of transformation for over 30 years. Karen holds a PhD in integrative medicine and is a faculty member at the Shift Network and Omega Institute. You will immediately be able to feel her heart and passion for the work and dedication to legacy leadership. Before we get into it, I wanted to give a brief overview of quantum human design. Quantum human design is an evolved system of human design that integrates traditional human design principles with quantum physics, modern psychology, and the language of transformation. Developed by Karen Curry Parker, it reinterprets the human design system to be more aligned with contemporary understandings of energy, consciousness, and human potential. In essence, quantum human design offers a framework for understanding your unique energy blueprint, including how you interact with the world, make decisions, and fulfill your life's purpose. It's a tool for self-discovery and personal growth that helps you, lovely light leader, align your life and leadership styles with your authentic self. This system empowers you to tap into your inherent strengths, transform limiting beliefs, and navigate life with clarity and intention, which in turn fosters a deeper connection to your purpose and potential. I know you are here for this because this is really like speaking our language. It's a lot of the things that we touch on in the show. I have to say that I've taken a lot of personal development assessments: DISC, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, Energy Leadership Index, Positive Intelligence, Emotional Intelligence. You name it, I've studied it. However, this one is different. Knowing my human design has been a powerful tool in understanding my deep patterns. It is not surface level. I've had several sessions with a member of Karen's team debriefing my chart. Each time I'm blown away by how intuitive and aligned the guidance is. It's incredible, so much so that I've got the main points posted on my whiteboard so I can tune into it regularly. Okay, without further ado, here is Karen Curry Parker.
I'm glad to be here, Casey. Thank you for having me.
I'm thrilled. I can't wait to dive in. I want to get right into it. So you mentioned that for over the past 3 decades, that the key thing that you've seen be the biggest reason for human pain and suffering is that lack of living authentically. And I would love to just kick it right off with that. If you could share more, that would be amazing.
Oh, absolutely. So, let's back up to the very beginning. When you are born, I like to say when you're born, your soul moves into this once in a lifetime cosmic event that is the story of who you are. And each and every one of us is born to fulfill this unique story. And who we are collectively is sort of this unified conglomerate of all these very interesting, very unique, very valuable stories. And who we are is a reflection of not only our own personal story, but everybody else around you. I like to say we're all threads in a cosmic tapestry. That's the woo-woo part. So
I love it.
And we are born into this unique story. And as we grow and mature, many of us, most of us, I would say, are learn to internalize a narrative that says it's not okay or safe for me to be who I am or how I am, right? When we look at the parameters that define success, all the formulas that we learn, the beliefs that we're indoctrinated by or internalized from our family, even the stories sometimes that come not even from our own family, but from our ancestral lineage, as we go out into the world, we learn very quickly. These are the rules for success. This is what you have to do to make the money, to have the relationship, to have the acceptance and the love and the value that society says is yours if you follow these rules. When we internalize these rules, oftentimes what we have to do is shut down our authentic self, right? If you think of these rules like a bell curve, right? There's a certain group of people who at the top of that bell curve will naturally fit into those rules, but the rest of us, we're trying to jam ourselves into a box.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is when we start to internalize the message that it's not okay or safe for us to be who we are, how we are, it actually creates inside of us a low grade experience that mirrors PTSD. Now, I want to be really clear when we talk about this that there's a very important difference between macro trauma and the kind of trauma one experiences from a very traumatic event. And I don't in any way want to downplay or minimize those experiences. And many of us experience the a similar quality of trauma, if you will, from a lifetime of denying ourselves, a lifetime of feeling that it's not okay or safe or valued for us to be who we are. When we learn to hide who we are, we end up numbing out our bodies, right? Because our bodies know, in fact, our bodies are designed to be our compass. So we go through life, we numb out our body's sending us signals like, hey, I hate this. This is miserable. I don't like it. And we have to shove it down because we don't know what else to do. Many of us are raised in a world where we don't know what else to do, right? If we don't follow these rules, we're not going to have money. We're not going to be okay. We learn to hide our authentic selves and it starts to impact our relationships, right? When you're not being true to yourself, how are you having a relationship when the person that is you isn't even in the relationship a lot of the times, right? So we learn to not ask for what we need and want. We learn to not even recognize sometimes what it is that we need and want. We deny ourselves in our work, so we don't have that place of joy and fulfillment and service that is really the natural definition of right work, right place. And of course, obviously, it affects, everything from finances to wellness and well-being in every level. In fact, we see that when we live in that place of self-denial, it actually impacts even our immune system, and our ability to even respond with a healthy immune system to the world is decreased significantly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, Karen, when we have these walking humans that have experienced these micro traumas in
Mhm.
their life that have become conditioned to suppress, what do you think is the number one way that we can give ourselves permission to lay down the mask?
Huge question. I personally, there are lots of different ways, and some of it is I want to be really clear. Sometimes we have situations that mean that we have to carefully construct an exit strategy from the inauthentic life, right? When we have kids or we have obligations of various kinds, we oftentimes don't have the ability to just say, okay, I'm done. And oftentimes the body will give us those opportunities, and that's not always so great. But certainly I would say there's a great gift in stopping if you can. And that stopping might not mean you don't quit your job, but certainly I would say there's a great gift in resting and waiting. There's a great gift in disconnecting from the freneticness and the busyness and getting first and foremost back in touch with the body. That has to always be the very first step, because your body is, like I said, it is a compass. And it's going to send you signals when you reconnect with it about what's the next right step. And oftentimes we need to reconnect with those inner signals and those inner symptoms first before we can know what is that next right step. So pausing, stopping, quitting if you can, taking any place where you can disentangle yourself from obligation, responsibility. And this is so counterintuitive. But one of the most important things you can do is to really assess, are you getting good rest?
Mm-hmm.
Are you literally taking time off that's restorative, that is leaving you resourced in some way, shape, or form? Because until you can do that, if you're running on fumes, you'll never connect with the body. You'll never be able to hear what's truth, and you'll be in this constant state of reactivity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for myself as a former burnout, individual, I mean, years of burnout for doing the same paradigm that you mentioned, all the things that we're taught. I love your philosophy that it is a gift from our highest self. It is, I love that piece.
Burnout is a
I love
blessing.
it. Yeah, exactly. I think you called it a generous act. And when I heard that, I had to sit with it. And I was like, yeah, when I look back, it didn't feel like that, trying to recover because I wore that perfectionist badge and adrenal fatigue, as like, whoa, this is really showing I am a hard worker. So it took a lot of unwinding. And I'm curious for you with clients that have burnout, because a lot of our listeners are experience that or they're used to climbing that ladder, either if it's self-imposed from being a solopreneur or in that corporate environment. I'm curious how quantum human design actually can help them unhook from that outdated paradigm that just is causing them so
Mhm.
much pain, suffering, and physical fatigue.
So, human design and quantum human design are what I consider to be storytelling tools. When we start to look at the choices that we make, good or bad, if you will, when we start to look at the choices that we make or what we've created in our experience of life, oftentimes what we create goes back to what story are you telling about yourself? So if you're telling yourself a story that says, I'm powerless to make any change over this, or there's nothing I can do about this, it just is the way that it is. If we tell a story that says, I'm not valued for my authentic self, so I have to put on this disguise, right? Or we tell a story that says, if I do these 5 things with my life, then I'll be good and I'll make money and I'll be a good daughter or whatever, right? When we tell a story, it creates our interpretation and oftentimes our experience of reality. What I often find is that people, women especially, when we start to sit down and say, hey, the story's not working anymore. The story I'm telling isn't fitting. It's not, I can tell it's not a true story. I'm burned out. I don't have any joy. I feel stressed all the time. I'm snapping at my kids. I'm resentful of everything that I'm doing. I'm stretched. When we say this story isn't working anymore, we know we have to write a better story. We know we have to tell a better story. But oftentimes we don't know where to start, right? If you say, okay, well, your story, you need a better story. It's like, okay, great, but what parts do I need to rewrite rather? Human design, which is a synthesis of Eastern and Western astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Hindu chakra system, Judaic Kabbalah, and quantum physics, is really a system of personality assessment that's a compilation of ancient and modern archetypes, parts of stories.
Mm-hmm.
And each one of us is born into a specific story, the story that only each one of us can fulfill. So you have your story, I have my story, everybody has their story. But if you don't know what that story is, and you don't know what that story entails, and you don't know what the challenges are within the story, and you want to rewrite it, you don't often know where to begin. So human design, your human design chart is a really good place to start to look at, well, what is the story that I was born to fulfill?
Mm-hmm.
Who's the main character in my story? What are the characteristics of my main character? What's the plot outline of the story? What are some of the challenges, or what I like to call the sacred flaw in my story that I have to surmount and overcome so that I can become the heroine in my own narrative? That story of human design brings us back into exploring that narrative. Now, human design has built into it information about how to make decisions more effectively. And really, when we start to think about where we are in our lives right now, we are where we are because of the sum total of all the choices that we've made. And so when we start to recover and heal our ability to make decisions that benefit the main character in our story, what we do in the beginning is we bring ourselves back to baseline, which is a really important place to start in the storytelling process. We bring ourselves back to an understanding of, this is who I am, this is how I operate, this is the purpose of my life, this is the plot outline of my story. I'm ready to actually begin the story. And oftentimes when we start retelling stories or using intentional storytelling, we're not starting at baseline. We're usually starting before the character can even begin to walk the plot outline because we're so disconnected from who we are. we're not even at the baseline of our main character.
Are you a conscious leader ready to elevate your emotional resilience? I wanted to share an exciting new offering called Aligned Heart, building a superstructure of emotional resilience. In a world that feels increasingly chaotic, conscious leaders are called to stand strong, not just for others, but for themselves. If you're seeking a way to calm your nervous system, amplify your confidence, and deepen your intuition, Aligned Heart is your sanctuary. It is a return to you. To get all the details on this intimate group mentorship, please visit heartglowceo.com/alignedheart. See you there.
Over the years, when I worked with people using human design, and I brought people through the process of remembering who they are, reconnecting with how their energy operates, reconnecting with that decision-making capacity, I could bring people back to baseline. And what I found over time is that that's a great place to start. But when people lived from baseline, from that baseline authentic expression long enough, they started to long for something more. They started to long for an even bigger story that allowed them to not only fulfill themselves, but to ultimately fulfill a bigger purpose in the world, a purpose that, really incorporated the me within the we, if you will. And
Absolutely.
so I created a way of looking at human design that I call quantum human design, and they're all inclusive. You need all the different kinds of human design. I created a way of looking at human design through an expanded way of rewriting the archetypes so that we could begin to then look at, if I'm going to tell the story of my life, literally as a creative project, and I'm going to heal the disconnect between my body. I'm going to start making better decisions. I'm going to bring myself back into this authentic self-expression, phase one. Once I'm in that phase, then who am I? Who is the main character in this story now? And how do I take this main character and evolve it into a person that is living in such a way that my very life, my very story becomes a contribution to the world?
Wow, it's so beautiful. It's such meaningful work. I'm wondering if you could share a story of one of your clients that went through this transformation, that went on the hero's journey through human design, quantum human design.
Absolutely. So this is actually a woman who works for me right now. So one of my clients, and who then became my employee, or team member, is a woman who for many, many years suffered with extreme agoraphobia. She never left her house. She never went anywhere. She was in a marriage that she didn't really feel safe in. She was really hiding out literally in her life and in her house. And so she began, after learning human design, she began practicing living true to her natural decision-making ability. She was a type that's called a generator type in human design. So she had to relearn how to trust her gut and how to make decisions based on her gut feeling. As she continued to do that work, she started to realize, hey, I'm miserable in my marriage.
Mm.
I'm not happy. And she began to make the decisions that she needed to make to begin to untangle herself from a relationship that was really not very healthy for her. And
Mhm.
eventually she got divorced. After she got divorced, she, of course, had to then become a person that took care of herself financially. And so she had to make some really strong, bold decisions about, these are the things that I want to do that I'm passionate about. And so she began to study homeopathy and flower essences and energy psychology, and of course, human design. And she opened her own business doing this kind of work. And
Beautiful.
slowly, slowly, she began to build a thriving practice. And all of a sudden, she woke up one day and realized, I'm ready to leave the house.
Mm.
And so she started leaving the house. She ended up buying her own car, got herself driving. And now, not many years later, but say about 4 or 5 years later, she's now working for me. She is one of our master flower essences craftspeople. She has actually created all of our flower essence protocols that we use in quantum human design. She is a leader of our client transformation team. She, in and of herself, is a gifted healer. She's a gifted teacher. She's out in the world fulfilling that role of becoming masterful and using her mastery then to serve others.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, those things, it's got to make your work so fulfilling, like really hitting the sweet spot of your genius.
Yes, yes, for sure. I think, and I always think about, so so that question is like, or that comment is like, because yes, of course, I get excited when I watch my clients, but I get excited more about something else. I'm a grandma, and um, I had the great privilege when my first grandson was born to be in the delivery room when he was born, and my son-in-law is afraid of faints at the sight of blood, so I got to be in for the cesarean, and so they handed me my grandson, and I got to be the first person to hold him as I brought him to my daughter. And now you see if I can tell this without crying. So they put him in my arms, and I have to say that in that nanosecond of having this, holding this person in my arms and recognizing like how short and yet how long life is, my understanding of what affinity means, infinity just shattered. And my sense of urgency around, hey, we have to really get better at creating a world that's going to support these young kids as they go out and fulfill the future of humanity. So yes, I love to watch my individual clients achieve their joy. But in addition to that, when we look at the research around creativity, we're in a creativity crisis. Only 28% of people feel like they have control over their personal narrative. And I think when we live a life where we feel like we don't have control over our own story, which is ultimately the only thing you have control over, really, and you start to realize, okay, stories create, and we have 72% of the people on the planet who feel like they have no control over what they create. When we create from a disempowered place like that, it's easy to fall into lack consciousness. It's easy to feel like we're competing with each other, to think that the world is a zero-sum game. And that's not the world I want to create for Theo and Wesley. That's not the world I want to create for my kids and their kids. And I think, and for all the kids. And so for me, every single person that gets it, that says, hey, wait, I'm a unique and vital and irreplaceable part of the cosmic plan, and I'm a once in a lifetime cosmic event, and I'm valuable because I exist. Every person who gets that adds to a collective consciousness, a critical mass of collective consciousness that I believe takes us out of the zero-sum game, puts us in a place where we're on track to create sustainable, abundant peace for everyone, allows us to make a whole different set of decisions because now we're not in competition with each other. And if I'm a unique and vital and irreplaceable part of the cosmic plan, then so are you. And I need you and everyone else to also do good, to also be okay, so that we can all be okay. And to quote the late Paul Wellstone, we all do better when we all do better. And that is what turns me on.
Yeah, it's so exciting and it's contagious. And I know that our listeners are going to feel that too. That's that positive ripple effect. I mean, that is right here, right now, plugging in to that universal truth that if you subscribe to that as your front page news, the whole world will be different.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And so and then Theo and Wesley can go on and do the things they really want to do.
Yes, absolutely. And it's so cool that you're a light worker paving the way and showing a different way, showing the possibilities, because I think that also helps from decades of having our voice suppressed and having insecurities, imposter syndrome, and all the things that many of us struggle with, watching other people step out.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of peace of like, if she can do it, then I can do it too. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious for you when we're looking at leaders that really have guarded up. They have played the game, so to speak, but they're looking. There's a little crack in the shell. They know there's something different. What's their very first step to subscribing to this new paradigm and being a really beautiful contributor to the new earth?
There's a lot of paths to this. This is almost part B, but I would say the very first, most important thing you have to do is heal your self-worth. We forget that we are valuable because we exist.
Yeah.
And we tie the measurement of our value to all these external circumstances, to numbers, to how many numbers we have in our bank account, what our size of our pants, how many years of education we have. When we can disconnect from those measurements and remember, I am valuable because I am, period, the end. When we can walk into that space and hold that space, then I think that unleashes a domino effect of healing in every area of your life.
Mm-hmm. And I think it goes back to the basic foundations that you said at the top, which is rest, pausing, reflection. having that time to regulate your nervous system
Mhm.
long enough to even take a breath into this new space.
Mhm. Mhm.
Self-love, self-worth, that journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I might even add, I think also resourcing yourself. And when I say that, I mean not only, taking in and really taking stock of all the resources you have, but literally, going back out in nature or wherever it is that you connect and remembering that you are such an incredibly important part of something bigger than just yourself. And that's not meant to be in that scolding thing that, I mean, I don't know if I got scolded as a kid for being selfish, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about remembering that your life is important,
Mhm.
and it's inherently important because you're a big player in a cosmic plan that's bigger than just you. And I think when we forget sometimes our value, remembering that I think we're all here on a mission. And I personally think we're all here at this time on a very important mission to usher in something different, something better.
Absolutely. I'm curious if you could share with our listeners, because we have these amazing folks that are very into personal development, love the assessments, no doubt have handfuls of development tools and different assessments, whether it's DISC or energy leadership or Myers-Briggs or you name it. So I'm
Mhm.
curious, what can we share with them? What makes quantum human design different? Why this particular thing for them?
That's a great question. So part of why I think it's so different is that it's first of all, I think it's a wildly complementary tool. So all of these other assessment tools, even energy leadership, it's sort of the what, and human design is the how. You can learn I'm a this on the Colby, I'm a this in the Myers-Briggs, or I'm at this level of leadership with energy leadership. And those are all important pieces to understand. That's part of the story of who you are. Human design is going to teach you how you are so that when you go out into the world, you don't lose that connection to who you are. And
Mhm.
that I think is probably the most important. I think that's the most important information you can get from the human design system is how you stay connected to yourself.
Absolutely. I love that piece. And I'm curious for you, like one of the things that I see, and I see it even more often lately, is individuals getting attached to a label. And I've
Mhm.
heard you say in the past that labels help us understand, they give us context. And that's important when we're looking at our storyline. And I've also seen people like, I have ADD, so I'm a manifesting generator, so I'm an Enneagram 2, so and they really become attached to the label. I'm curious for you, since you are an expert in the science of personal narrative, how do we take this information, use it to our benefit, but not get attached to a specific label, which is again putting ourselves in a box?
Mm. Well, that's a 5-hour conversation right there. Um,
It's just a small question.
well, I mean, so first of all, I might lovingly and gently say we like labels because they help us navigate the unknown, right? When we go out into the world, there's a lot of mystery. Things happen that you don't have control or you think you don't have control over, right? And it feels really comfortable to be able to say, well, I'm a this and therefore a that, right? And we can do that with any system, not just with human design. Um, and here's the thing. I always think of it in the context of diamonds. And I think about in the context of diamonds on a quantum level. When you are occupying an identity, we'll call it that, right? When you're occupying identity, you're basically on a quantum level, you're basically activating a field of information. And that field of information is huge, right? And it contains all the things related to the idea. So if we look at a very simple idea like peace, right? Peace is a field of information. And in that field of information, there's even war, right? Because all the things that make peace what it is and define it it just contains every part of that story, including war. What we create in life is dependent on where we focus our attention in a quantum field of information. So if you have, let's say this is a quantum field of information, I'm holding up a glass diamond, not real. And this is a field of information related to your story, who you are. We're oftentimes over here on one facet, putting all of our energy into this label, right? I'm a this, I'm a almost 60-year-old woman, grandmother, blah, 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 whatever it is, right? And this becomes where you put your energy and attention, and ultimately becomes where you collapse the quantum potential or create your reality.
Get locked in. Mm-hmm.
And that's great for now, but you're not static. You're dynamic. I mean, I won't make you share how old you are. I'm 59 years old. Who I am today is different than who I was yesterday. Yeah, and who I was certainly 5 years ago has changed. And if I lock myself into a fixed identity, my capacity to grow, to shift, to evolve, it gets very limited.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when, and this is the part that's really, to me, the part that worries me the most, especially when the story we tell or the label we embrace is a limiting label.
Absolutely.
If you're saying, oh, I'm a this, therefore I'm a that, and that's why I'm broke, and that's where you're going to keep identifying because you really literally are what you declare yourself to be, then you're stuck there and you're not opening yourself up to all the other facets on the gem.
Mm-hmm.
So, we are dynamic energy and motion. We are literally quantum beings. We're not static. Nothing about you is static. And if you lock onto an identity that isn't serving your evolution and growth, and you stick yourself there, you're basically declaring your limitedness. And that's not fun. Let's just say it's not fun to begin with, right? And secondly, it's not really optimizing the full potential of your human condition. And
Absolutely.
so labeling is dangerous.
Thank you. Thank you. I know that answer is going to be very, very helpful. I really appreciate it. And for those that want to take a step into your world, where's the best place they can locate you?
Best place to locate me is quantumhumandesign.com.
Amazing. Amazing. I can't wait to share that out. And this has been so awesome. You said that it could be a 5-hour conversation on just that one topic. I agree. I didn't even get nearly the questions that I want answered, but it's enough for people's curiosity to be piqued. And that is so important to tap into that unlimited potentiality of self. So I'm loving your message. If you wanted to leave our listeners with one final bright light word of wisdom, what would it be?
I would say, I always like to tell the story. I have 5 kids. We've always had dogs and cats. When you put together a puzzle in our house, puzzles have a very short lifespan. It's only a matter of minutes before a dog eats a piece, or some frustrated kid rips off parts of the puzzle and tries to jam it in a place where it doesn't go. And if you think about a puzzle and the beauty of a puzzle is only as beautiful as the sum total of its pieces. If you think of each human being on this planet being part of the puzzle of humanity, and some of us have ripped off places of our own being to try to squeeze ourselves into slots where we don't belong, not only are we suffering, but we're not adding our right place to the puzzle that is humanity. The world needs us, each and every one of us, to be in our right place at this time, especially. And you literally, the story, you living and fulfilling the story of who you are is the greatest contribution you can make to the world. It's not what you do, it's who you be. So be who you were born to be.
Oh, I feel that deeply in my heart. Thank you. That is awesome. I love it. You are a delight. This has been such a great conversation. I really appreciate you and the work that you're doing in the world.
Thank you. I appreciate you too.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode on Quantum Human Design with Karen Curry Parker. If you want to get your chart, you can head on over to freehumandesignchart.com. It's Karen's gift to you. Lastly, if you enjoyed this episode, I'd be grateful if you left a review at lovethepodcast.com/brilliance. It helps other listeners find and enjoy the show. Until next time, breathe joy.